Hello and welcome back to the MLB DFS Slate Breakdown for Friday, September 27th. It is the last show of the 2024 season. It's been a fun ride, been a good season. I will be back next year for more of these so we can pick up right where we leave off today. But until then, enjoy the show. Let's make some money. And before we get into this slate, please come join us at LineStar. There's a couple ways to do it very cheap or free. If you've never tried us before, there's a 7-day free trial through the App Store, both Android or iOS App Store. We also have these promo codes down here. 1 free month. All you got to do is deposit at least $10, play a little bit, and if so, please use this form here. We got a link there to just let us know you did, and then we can search for the data from that provider. Now, let's get into it. Got a nice little slate to cover, and it is a 12-game Friday. At least we're ending on a big boy slate, and let's get into it. Our high-owned pitcher is Nick Pivetta. 22% owned, 1.9x. We got a 5-star alert score for him. It is a pretty good spot. Tampa Bay really hasn't been hitting very well, especially versus righties. Pivetta has done decently versus Tampa Bay over the last few games or so. I don't mind the spot. My one thing with Pivetta is he is just notoriously inconsistent. His ceiling is extremely high, but his floor is extremely low. And, you know, his normal outing isn't quite good enough to win you a DFS here. So we do need a ceiling. And I don't love going there on a super high owned spot. There's multiple different pitchers we can use today. While I like Pivetta, I don't need to go full in on him. I don't mind some leverage Tampa Bay stacks, as Pivetta is just notoriously inconsistent. Now, there is some upside. 27% combined K rate is fairly interesting, and he's averaging 20% more fantasy points at home. Weather's kind of cool in Fenway, so it does work for the pitcher a little bit better as well. I don't mind him. Don't absolutely love him either. Jacob deGrom. He's making his third start. This is my big warning. He had 58 pitches and 61 pitches. There is literally no reason to push Jacob deGrom and push his pitches. So I wouldn't be surprised if he is still stuck around 60. Maybe he gets a little extra run, but I don't think it's going to be that much. And him being the second highest owned pitcher on this slate is just wild to me. Now, it is a great spot. He has a combined K rate of 31% in the spot. He is an absolute beast. He's the best pitcher in the game. And all of that stuff. But I just keep going back to the pitching limit. Maybe he goes 4 innings today. If he really has it going 5 in with 60 pitches. And I just find it hard on this big of a slate to believe that that's going to end up being optimal. Next, we got Jose Barrios versus the Miami Marlins. Miami Marlins have actually kind of been hitting. They're hitting 288 over the last 20 games, the 167 ISO, 347 WOBA. I don't really love going against them right now. Now, Barrios has actually been pitching very, very well. And it really goes back to almost like 10 starts here, not just 5, but a 3.25 FIP over that span, 21% K rate. He has some upside in this spot, not a ton. I would consider him, but 9K for Barrios is pushing it a little bit. He can get mid-20s, and he can get mid-20s in this spot. But I don't love it versus Miami. They've actually been hitting decently. Next, we got Sean Manaea. Manaea's been dealing. It's been this way for a little bit. 3.92 FIP over his last 20. 3.69 over his last 5. K rate solid, right around 27%. StatCast data is a little scary, but Milwaukee has not been very good versus lefties. 225 average, 126 ISO, 280 WOBA, and there is some upside of 25.9% combined K rate. I don't mind some Manaea. The Mets need the win big time. Manaea is, however, averaging 22% less fantasy points while away. I think it's an interesting spot. I'll have a little bit for sure. Next, we got Carlos Rodon, 9,300 versus Pittsburgh. This might be my favorite spot of the day. Pittsburgh, 29% K rate versus lefties, low WOBA, 280, low ISO, 130. Rodon averaging 24.2% more fantasy points at home, 3.8 FIP over his last 5, 4.18 over the last 20. The K rate is solid, 29% over the last 20, 31% over the last 5. We've talked a couple times over like the last month or so that his K stuff has came back, and it definitely has. I like this spot for Rodon, especially at this kind of ownership. 18% owned versus, 22 or whatever. And it could end up being a little higher than that as people start to agree with my take there. Next, we got Freddie Montas, 7K versus the Mets. Montas has been all right with the Brewers. However, Mets really need this game. Montas really isn't that great of a pitcher. We got a 5.3 FIP over his last 5, 4.5 over the last 20. I don't really love him in this spot, but at 7K and we have him at 2.2x, he's at least in consideration when we got a combined K rate at 27%. Taj Bradley, I can't do it. Man has been way too inconsistent lately. There is big time K upside in the spot, so if you want to get crazy and go for that upside, it is there, but I just see too much downside and too many other pitchers to take. Max Fried, I like this spot for Max Fried. Guy has been a beast. Only issue is he's averaging 35% less fantasy points at home. Another issue is we're not really totally, we don't know how good the field conditions are in Atlanta after Helen just went through. There is winds coming in strong. The Royals are worse away at hitting. They haven't been good versus lefties. I think there's a ton of things going in Max Fried's favor. We got like a 24% K rate, 3.24 FIP over the last 20. He is a very, very solid pitcher in a decent spot. Max Fried is one of my favorite, and he comes in at lower owned, so I really, really like that spot. Reed Detmers, he, as I talked about during these two good games, the dude is inconsistent, has a couple good games, then totally falls off and stays down there. I don't know what kind of adjustments this guy needs to make, because obviously the league adjusts to him and then he can't adjust again, and that's the situation now. So Rangers aren't a very hard matchup, but it's tough for me to trust Reed. Now, at least we do know there is upside if he gets it going and if he's dealing, but it's hard for me to trust him. Miles Mikolas in a good spot, but I don't love it. Neither team really has anything to play for. Pablo Lopez, 8.8K versus the Orioles. Very, very tough spot. Lopez has been dealing at least 3.54 FIP over his last 20, 3.16 over the last 5. StatCast data looks pretty good. Matchup data, Baltimore's a good offense, but at least Lopez has done good versus Baltimore in the past. I don't love the spot, don't mind it. Jared Jones has fallen off from that just absolute spectacular start. I have a very hard time wanting to take him versus the Yankees. Joey Cantillo, it's a tough spot for the Astros. Don't really like that. Brady Singer, no. JP Sears. Seattle's just been raking versus lefties a bit. I don't really love trying to pick on Seattle. However, it is a 7.5 game total, so I don't totally. All right, now getting back to you, Darvish. All right. Using a decent spot here just because the Diamondbacks have been slumping over the last 10 games or so. But he's going to be trying to get ready for the playoffs and testing all his pitches, making sure and seeing what's working, making sure, everything's right, doing all that kind of stuff. My worry is just the upside in this spot. Only a 22.8% combined K rate. However, at least he has a 27% K rate in the BVP data. 189 plate attempts, though, but they've actually hit him decently. So, all in all, I don't love it. You can go there if you really want to get wild on bigger GPPs, but I don't love the spot. Merrill Kelly, it's just against the Padres, and they're just so low upside. I got to bring up Cade Pavich a little bit just because he has started to deal a little bit, and he's a big-time prospect. So we know the talent is there, but over his last 5 starts, 3.07 FIP, 30% K rate. And, I mean, the competition wasn't the best that he went against. However, now he's against Minnesota, who hasn't been hitting great in the short term. So the 10 or 20 game data still looks fine, but if you took it to last 5 or 10, probably look a little bit worse, and they do strike out a little bit. So slightly interested if you want to get a little wild. It's a bet on talent, and that he's kind of figured out MLB a little bit and made some adjustments to just get a little bit better. So I think at 6.3K, you can absolutely take some chances on him. We've seen multiple 20-plus games, and that's all you really need out of him. But we have seen the upside of, almost 40. So he's a little bit interesting. All right, getting over to FanDuel. Our high-owned pitcher on FanDuel is Sean Manaea. I like the spot. I can't hate on it. I think 21% owned is a little high, but I don't mind it. Jacob deGrom. I'm even more out on him on FanDuel than I am on DraftKings. The simple fact is quality start is out of question for him, and it just lowers the median projection so much for me that I just can't really do it. Even if they let him go 70 pitches instead of 60, he's not going to get the quality start, and therefore I'm out. I mean, a guy would have to rack up like 10 Ks in 5 innings and get the win to really make it count. And so far, he hasn't worked past the 3rd inning. So I don't even know if he goes 5. So maybe he can't get the win. Carlos Rodon, Max Fried. Those are my 2 favorite spots today. So Rodon, 20% owned. Fried, 8% owned. I like them both, and most of my ownership is going to go to them and Manaea. And then I'll probably have a couple sprinkle in spots after that, but I would say 80-90% of my ownership is probably going to go to those 3 guys on FanDuel. Now, let's check out some stacks and see what we can uncover here. So our highest owned stack on the slate is the Dodgers. They are also our highest projected stack. No surprise, as we got a Colorado game. It is also the best hitting weather on the slate. So their ownership is going to be very high on a 12-game slate. Typically in situations like this, I either want to stack that game or at least one team, or kind of totally avoid it because, 3-1 games do happen. And if it's a 3-1 game, the likelihood of you needing one player in that is low. The likelihood of you needing a stack in that is super low. So I think that's how I'm approaching the game. It's either there's going to be, big 4 or 5 man stacks depending on the site you're in, or stay away. So, but both teams look good, and I want to play both. Now, our highest value stacks, we got Texas. I love this Texas spot. Reed Detmers has been terrible lately, and we know he gets in these runs where he gives up 5-6 runs a game, and behind him is a bad bullpen. So give me all the Texas. Giants make a lot of sense. versus Mikolas. Mikolas can be very good at limiting runs and working deep into games, but I just don't respect him. Well, I'm not scared of him that much, so if the Giants are popping, I'm fine with them. I'm just not trying to go to a 5-man stack. I'll probably go smaller ones with them. Toronto versus Adam Euler. I love it. Or Euler. 6.23 FIP on the season. 4.82 over the last 5. Toronto's been hitting decently. I'm definitely there. And then Miami versus Jose Barrios. Miami is just hitting pretty well. And Barrios is very inconsistent. He's been pitching well lately, but he still has a FIP of 4.75 over the last 5. He has blow-up games. I don't mind trying to pick on that. Our highest ceiling stack is Dodgers. No surprise. So the Dodgers have a 6 implied run total. Colorado is down at 5. Colorado is still very much in the game. We don't know who the Dodgers are pitching yet. They are in full-on get ready for playoffs mode, but they do have a bye, so I do expect them to still play their studs, still let their pitchers go, as they're just, doing their last preparations for good old playoffs here. Toronto, I love, 4.8. Arizona at 4.6 versus Darvish. I think 4.6 is a bit high, but Darvish has and they have got to him a little bit. Boston versus Bradley makes a ton of sense. They're hitting it hard. Minnesota versus Cade Pavich. I think this is an interesting one where I don't mind playing either side. One, bullpen in Baltimore hasn't been great. Pavich was getting crushed, but has been good lately. Could he go back to crushed? Absolutely. Atlanta versus KC. I don't mind going there. Yankees are in a very good spot versus Pittsburgh. Jared Jones has fallen off a little bit, and the bullpen behind him is bad. So Yankees could be a low-owned stack that you definitely want. Other ones I'm interested in are the Mets, Texas, the Padres, Tampa Bay. Pivetta is good, but he can give it up. He has games where he gets crushed, and the bullpen behind him is bad. Also interested in Miami. And I don't mind going to the Angels also. Jacob deGrom has only pitched 3 innings in his last 2 starts. 6 innings total. And the bullpen behind him is bad. If he only goes 3 innings again, you have 6 innings versus a poor bullpen. Makes a lot of sense to stack an incredibly low-owned Angels team versus a poor bullpen. It is more of a play if you're in like the super big GPPs than the smaller ones, but I don't mind taking a couple shots there. All right, guys, that'll do it for us today. That'll do it for the 2024 season. Once again, thank you guys for joining me. I will still have all the NFL shows going on. Basketball starts in a month. Good luck. Let's make some money. See you guys soon. Peace.